Buenos dias, amigos. It is I, the man who puts the I in team, El Ojo. Welcome back with our first episode of our new series, starring the famous luchador, el Enmascarado De Negro, Neutron. This film is directed by Federico Curiel and stars Wolf Rovinsky. And as mentioned in our announcement video, go watch that if you haven't already, Wolf Rovinsky hails from Latvia. He is a former luchador turned actor, with his most notable role being that of the titular character Neutron in the Neutron film trilogy. Why did I say film trilogy when there are 5 films starring Neutron? That is because Neutron was originally a character created specifically for a film, as a trilogy. In fact, Wolf Rovinsky would wrestle as a rudo under his real name, Wolf Rovinsky, with a B. Although there would be luchadors who would wrestle under the name and mask of Neutron. However, these people have no familial ties to Wolf Rovinsky. As mentioned, the series was intended as a trilogy, as was the style at the time, but Neutron was so popular, the films came back with 2 more films, El Criminal Sádico and Los Asesinos Karatecas. There is also a mythical 6th film titled Neutron Traps the Invisible Killers. But this film is directed by René Cardona and does not actually star Neutron. In fact, this film is an English release of the film El Enmascarado de Oro en El Asesino Invisible, starring Jorge Rivera. We will review that film another day. And finally, the most recent film to feature Neutron is from the 2007 film Mil Mascaras contra la Momia Azteca, which is currently on YouTube, link below. He shows up in a cameo as one of the members of Los Campeones Justicieros. We will also review that film another day. Some of you keen-eyed viewers may recognize Wolf Rovinsky from the 1984 interview on Mexican TV, where El ídolo de las multitudes, El Santo, showed his face on air before passing away a few weeks later. This interview is actually still on YouTube for any curious viewers. So, does this film start with a bang or with a whimper? Let's find out. Intro. Space. 2 chickens are doing the yin and yang. The studio card reads, Estudio América presenta. Producciones Corsa presenta. Wolf Rovinsky en Neutron, El Enmascarado de Negro. We are transported to a giant lab. And it is giant. There's a generator, a bookcase, computer, and stairs. I'm not drawing all of that. A little person walks into the lab and brings a package to a normal-sized man wearing all white, including a mask. Cut to 2 men in suits. They are pacing in an office, and one of the men gives the other man a penny. We later find out these are officers, Inspector Lozano and Chema. He actually doesn't get a name, but I'm going to call him Chema. Because like most lucha movies, they do not establish names of characters until 30 minutes into the film. Chema says, Dr. Caronte, I knew it. He always leaves these coins with his victims. The first man responds with, this means he's here in the city. The second man puts the coins in his pocket. Is he keeping the pennies? Then Chema points to a close-up photo of a man in white walking. He remarks, he is the most cruel scientist of all delinquents. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's how he said it in Spanish, so I'm just repeating it. Inspector Lozano says, don't worry, we are not alone. We have the smartest, strongest secret agent. And he points to a close-up photo of Neutron, el Enmascarado Negro, flexing. Chema gleefully replies, the hero, defender of good, an antagonist to Carnote. Chema then asks if only we knew what Dr. Caronte wants. Cut to a tunnel. Dr. Caronte conveniently says, the bomb! The bomb! I'm looking for the bomb! His henchman, I believe Caronte calls him Nick, responds with, nothing is impossible for you. Dr. Caronte says, it is the most terrifying weapons for humankind. Nick, the ever-eager employee, says, and we will attack today. Caronte immediately shuts this idea down and says that he will study the bomb. Also, I'm not sure why, but the evil scientist and Nick just hold hands, which I found to be very wholesome. We cut to a random office where two scientists are creating some kind of spike bomb. Professor Yanis, the shorter scientist, tells the tall scientist, Professor Walker, "Here it is, Walker. We have finally done it." Apparently, it is a beta test, and Professor Yanis says to be careful because the neutrons in the bomb are unforgiving. Is this foreshadowing? Probably not. Walker says, with this bomb, the wars are over, and Yanis explains, no one will want new wars. It sounds like a president, I know. But Walker gets an idea. He thinks the scientists should hold on to the weapon and use it to take over the world. Yanis gets mad and yells, "This goes against everything I stand for. The bomb is to bring peace." I don't understand how bombs bring peace. I'm pretty sure Yanis might be American. Walker brings up a good point and says, forget about it. But Yanis says, no means no. Walker backs down and calms Yanis by calling his henchman, Lobo. Lobo then gives Yanis a two-way ticket to Mictlan. Impressed, Professor Walker asks Lobo if he can see his gun. But it's a trap! Walker uses the gun on Lobo. Walker goes into the office and calls the police. He lies about what happened. However, Yanis somehow lives. His hand reaches for the bomb, and after dropping it, it explodes, releasing neutrons all over the lab, in the form of flashing lights. While on hold, Professor Walker is hit with radiation, and his skin melts, so he screams and runs away. Cut to a lucha gym. 3 men are working out, and the trainer says, it's time to shower, let's go. And all men go to the showers. Was this normal in the 60s? Jaime says he needs to go to his father's lab, and gets a phone call. Like any normal person, he answers the phone call mid-shower, without putting on a towel. It's news about his father, who was in an accident. Back at the office, Inspector Lozano and Chema look over the disintegrated body and a deceased Lobo. Meanwhile, 3 unnamed scientists are nervous that the neutron bomb is missing. But no time to worry, Jaime and his 2 friends show up. Mario Nunez asked, was this done by foreign agents? And Inspector Lozano replies with, who are you? The 3 professors say, sorry, and they all leave. Mario says, something seems fishy, and the serious friend, Carlos, says, you're always thinking of adventures. We should think about Jaime, while Mario hugs Jaime. Mario tells Jaime, I am by your side. Carlos says, so am I. You forget about me. These guys sure are good friends. Mario says, they will be the 3 musketeers, one for all and all for one. The 3 are driving. They see a light turned on in Dr. Walker's giant mansion. They get the idea to check and see who's inside because Walker should be unalived like Professor Yanis. Marcelo, Walker's butler, lets the boys in. They go inside and meet Walker's niece, Nora. Jaime introduces himself to Nora by saying, my dad died with your uncle. But again, this was the 1960s, so this may be a normal thing to say. Nora says, it is nice to meet you. I'm new to the country. The trio ask, are you Mexican? To which Nora replies, yes, but I grew up in Europe. Which means she's stuck up. Marcelo walks into a secret hallway. It's horrible. Walker lives. But at what cost? He has bad skin. Walker asks Marcelo, who has arrived? Marcelo says, Jaime and his friends have arrived. Walker wonders, what are they doing? Marcelo responds with, talking to your niece. Walker shows his evilness by growling. Darn her! Why did she decide to arrive? She's going to ruin everything! He also tells Marcelo he needs the notes from all of Yanis' collaborators. Back downstairs, the 3 musketeers say bye to Nora, and Jaime gives her his address in case she needs anything. After the boys leaves, she tells Marcelo, I'm going to bed, turn off the lights. Walker goes into his niece's room with a knife. So Nora wakes up and throws a pillow at him. She runs all over the house, then flees outside in a nightgown. But Walker is in hot pursuit. She walks into 2 drunks. Walker sees the 2 drunks and he runs away in fear. Not sure why, since he was the one with a knife. Back at Jaime's place, whoa, this place actually looks nice. It's huge, mid-century, and clean. Good for him. Nora is scared about what happened. Jaime offers to take Nora back to Walker's mansion, but she doesn't want to go. Next scene. Jaime takes Nora back to Walker's mansion. Marcela opens the gate, but Nora just shouts, "Where were you? I was yelling." Marcelo responds with, "I was asleep." Jaime says to lock all the door, then leaves. In some random dungeon, the masked man, Dr. Caronte, tells Nick Walker is moving too fast. Then he tells Nick, "Leave, Walker is coming." And jump in Jehoshaphat Neutron. A white car pulls up in front of Museo de Anaquali. By the way, if you're ever into that Mexico, go check it out. It has a lot of pre-Columbian art from all over La República. It is from the private collection of Diego Rivera. The museum even contains some commie murals. Go check it out, and you won't be disappointed. Remember, that is Museo Anaquali. For legal reasons, El Ojo is not affiliated with them in any way. A shadow walks inside the building. It's Walker! The building is so cool on the inside. By the way, this is not what the actual museum looks like. This is just a set for the movie. Dr. Caronte wants to team up with Walker, as he is interested in his plans. Walker hears a noise, but Caronte interrupts and says, "Those are my servants. Let me show you." He takes Walker in a secret hallway. Hey, they have so much in common. Science, big houses, secret hallways. For some reason, they walk in real time, and getting to the lab takes a full 2 minutes. Caronte, like any 5-year-old, shows his 12 automatons to Walker. He has 2 of the automatons come up, and he tells Walker to shoot at them. Walker refuses. Caronte encourages Walker by ordering the automatons to attack him. Walker, being the gentleman, accepts and shoots at the automatons. And Caronte tells Walker thank you, and orders the automaton back to bed. Back upstairs, Walker says, "That was terrible." I'm pretty sure he was talking about the stairs. Caronte says he wants the neutron bomb, and Walker says if they team up, they will take over the world. Walker wants to know who his partner will be, and Caronte replies, "My parents are darkness." Walker says it is a logical question. Caronte scoffs. "I hate logic. Does this seem logical to you? I have made the illogical come true." Which is not a rap, but it sounds like one. He also tells Walker not to chase his niece with a knife. That actually sounds very logical to me. Caronte says, "The world must think you are dead, and we must focus on our first victim." Cut to Professor Wilson. He is talking to the 3 musketeers, and he shows him a letter. He has part of the formula for the neutron bomb. He will take it to the safety deposit box. Professor Wilson has also reached out to his buddy in London, Professor Thomas, to investigate the Yanez murder. Jaime will join Professor Wilson to drop off the formula tomorrow. Or will he? 3 automatons come by and take the formula and leave pennies on Professor Wilson's eyes. The next morning, the 2 detectives are with the 3 musketeers. Jaime explains that Wilson had 1/3 of the formula, as it is used to create the neutron bomb. The detectives say it must be important. Mario asks, "Who is Caronte?" One of the detectives says, "He is an evil who leaves pennies on his victims." I mean, sure, we just saw that. Jaime says, "He killed my father." Carlos and Mario respond with, "We can help." And the detective says, "Que?" Which is true, because Walker killed Professor Yanez, not Caronte. The 3 musketeers leave, confused, much like me. In the street, Mario says, "We must get involved." Jaime responds with, "We should obey the law. We belong to a society that demands obedience." Mario retorts, "I prefer not to belong to a society like that." But the 3 musketeers come up with a plan. Carlos and Mario will check on the remaining scientists, and Jaime will check on Nora. At the restaurant La Roca, no relation, Nora is singing. She will debut tonight. Jaime gives Nora an update on the case, for reasons. He invites her for drinks, but she says she has to sing. Jaime remembers he has to investigate his father's murder, and says goodbye. Carlos goes to visit Professor Duval, but it's a trap. The detectives were hiding to catch the killer. Carlos wants Duval's part of the formula, to protect it. But Duval asks, "Why? I have the police. And there's a plan to keep me and the formula safe." Carlos does not understand, and leaves mad. Jaime is waiting outside. What happened? Wait, why didn't Jaime ask Duval for the formula? Doesn't he know his dad? Jaime says, I'll wait outside. Inside Duval's apartment, we get our first look at Neutron. He punches Duval, then a cop, then the agents. He takes on 5 men as Duval looks and says he took the formula. Go get him! Duval, now alone, is attacked by the automatons. Back at Walker's basement, Professor Walker and Marcelo beat up Duval for his piece of the formula. Meanwhile, at La Roca restaurant, the band, Johnny Laboriel, plays the song Melodia de Amor. At the table, Carlos is hitting on Nora. Jaime comes in and explains that Duval has been kidnapped, and 2 of the 3 musketeers leave. Where are they going? They aren't cops. Back at Walker's basement, Duval is being tortured by the automatons, while Walker and Marcelo look on. Marcelo says he doesn't have it. Walker asks, how? Marcelo shows his evil side by saying, I saw it on TV a while ago. I guess Marcelo just likes to see people suffering? He says Neutron took it. Caronte, like some omnipresence, says, Marcelo tells the truth. Did everyone except Walker know? This torture scene seems like a waste of time for Walker. Walker yells at Caronte and says, he wants to talk. Where are you? Only for Caronte to say, in darkness. Marcelo looks at Duval and says, he is dead. At Televicentro, which is a news station, the 2 detectives walk in and ask, what are you going to talk about? The reporter turns out to be Mario, and he says to talk about the 3 dead, 2 missing, and the bomb most terrible. The investigators say don't, to avoid panic. Mario asks the agents, are Neutron and Caronte friends? What kind of reporter is this? After a brief chat, they say, what a great talk, and the investigators leave. Mario and Carlos come out of the blue and ask, what do the inspectors want? Are they just following the inspectors around? The trio decide to meet with Professor Mendez. A Crocodilo taxi drops off Mendez at his apartment. Carlos and Jaime come by and ask for his part in the formula. Mendez says, no need. The formula is in a safety deposit box, and only the police have the key. He also says, Thomas will be in town next week. At Televicentro, Mario gives the news. Back at Walker's mansion, Jaime tries to confess his interest to Nora. But Nora says, we can talk later. Carlos is here. After they leave, Marcelo tells Walker the coast is clear. But a bad moon is rising. Nora forgets something halfway to the venue and asks Carlos if they can drive back to her uncle's house. Nora goes back and sees her uncle alive? Walker attacks Nora, but Jaime and Carlos hear the screams and rush inside. Then 3 automatons come and attack Mario and Carlos. They fight a hard battle until the police sirens are heard, so Walker and the automatons retreat. Jaime and Carlos chase after them and find Duval unalived in Walker's basement. They go back into the living room and meet up with Nora and the police. Jaime tells her, you can't stay in this house, come with me. All the cops leave and not one of them checks Walker's basement. Newspaper reads, Falsa muerte del profesor Walker. La policía ordena su captura. The agents speak with Carlos and Chema asks, if he can make more monsters, won't that make it hard for us? Back at Caronte's lair, he explains he knows where the last part of the formula is at. When Walker asks how, which is a great question by the way, Caronte just says, I have my ways. He tells his men, prepare for battle. At the Secret Service office, they are informed the formula is taken. Neutron is at Mendez's apartment and doesn't notice the not breathing and knife in Dr. Mendez. But it's another trap! 4 automatons attack Neutron. He takes them on and jumps through a window. A week passes because now we are at the airport and the 2 agents pick up Professor Thomas. The agents explain the situation with Caronte, Neutron, and the formula. They walk Professor Thomas into a taxi, he sits in the back, and the taxi drives off. The detectives have an awesome idea, to shoot at the moving taxi in a crowded place. We get a big reveal. The taxi driver is Neutron, and he has man-napped Professor Thomas. Neutron says, trust me bro, then hands him the formula, and Neutron drops off Professor Thomas at the police station. But it's another trap! Dr. Thomas is actually Professor Walker, in disguise. Marcelo drives by and picks up Walker and they both leave. At the Secret Service office, Investigator Lozano yells, how could I be so foolish? Neutron stole Professor Thomas. The three musketeers come in uninvited and tell the investigator Thomas sent a telegram. He's coming tonight. Confused, the inspector asks who was at the airport. The five of them decide to go back to the airport to see the real Professor Thomas. Thomas says by having three parts of the formula together, they can create a new bomb. The inspectors decide to go back to the office, and the boys take Professor Thomas back to Jaime's place. Jaime's servant takes the professor to his bedroom. And then Mario remembers he has to go back to work. Jaime goes to talk to Nora, but she seems uninterested. Professor Thomas tries to nap, but Neutron appears in the window and says, "We need to talk." The next day, Thomas is giving a speech about the bomb. Thomas announces he can create a neutralizer for the neutron bomb, so Caronte can't use it. At Walker's lab, Caronte speaks to him through omnipresent voice and tells Walker, "Hurry up!" Back at Caronte's place, Walker is waiting with the neutron bomb. Caronte walks in mad, yelling at Walker, saying the bomb can be neutralized. Walker is mad because he just replicated the bomb, and now he can't use it. An alert goes on, and Caronte calls for 1, 2, and 3. Outside of Jaime's house, Neutron is lurking when a taxi drops off Nora. She goes inside to Jaime's place, but unknown to Neutrons, the automatons arrive and attack Neutron. Nora came to talk to Jaime, but Professor Thomas is there. He says, "You need to leave. You are in danger." Outside, Neutron is knocked out. Back at Caronte's lab, Thomas, Nora, and Neutron are now hostages. As Marcelo looks on, Walker asks them, "Who's gonna stop me?" Walker takes off Neutron's mask, and it's Mario. But Mario says, "I am not Neutron. I am just dressing like him." Walker orders Marcelo to kill him, but Caronte from the rafter yells, "Stop! I have a better idea." Caronte unleashes a legion of automatons, and from the rafters, Neutron comes in and takes on Caronte. They fight as the automatons attack everyone: Marcelo, Thomas, Mario, and even Professor Walker. Thomas and Nora escape with the bomb, and Mario is in hot pursuit. Neutron follows, then Dr. Caronte, and finally, the automatons. There's a funny scene where Thomas falls, and I realize the design for the bomb is not practical at all, just a maze. Luckily, our heroes end up in a supply closet with radiation suits. They put them on, and once suited, they throw the bomb and kill every living creature in the building. Caronte disintegrates. It's actually shot really cool. Smoke fills the hallways, and they walk in spacesuits. Only his suit remains, as his body is gone. Outside Caronte's lair, Jaime meets the gang. The second Neutron turns out to be Carlos, but he's also not the real Neutron. Nora gives a WTF face. Neither Carlos or Mario are Neutron. Apparently, the real Neutron called both of them and told them both to dress like him and fight Walker and Caronte. Carlos just says, "Finally, this nightmare is over. Tomorrow will be a wonderful day." They get in the car and drive away. Fin. There you go, Lucha fans. Did this series start with a bang or with a whimper? Do Lucha films need at least one Lucha match? This film didn't have any. Leave your comment below. Next month, we will review the next film in the series, Los Autómatas de la Muerte. So stick around, because we will answer the age-old question of, is the second film the worst film in the trilogy? Because there are a lot more Luchas de Tres Caídas coming your way. Where did Carlos and Mario get Neutron clothes? How did they know the real Neutron called them and not some random person? Why do the hero and the super weapon have the same name? Who is the real Neutron?